Okay. Yeah, that'll do it. So, welcome everybody. Nice to see you. Thanks for turning up an hour later than normal. So what we're talking about, it seems, is that there's nowhere to get to. There's no way to get here. If you're trying to get here, you're trying to get there. There can only be there from here, and there is no there. All of there is here. So there's no way of arriving. If you've still imagined, as I imagined, that there were some human beings who had arrived, the special ones, the chosen ones, the ones who knew, and that they'd found their way. So the most wonderfully dreadful news is that there is no way. There's no traveling. There's no path. There's no journey. Just beautifully empty, gorgeous, terrible stories of traveling. And without the stories, there's nothing. I still have people say to me, but you're still in the story. You're always telling stories. That's, you know, as though the story is the problem. Well, stories aren't the problem. Stories is all we have. We don't have anything else. And so the stories, if they're seen for what they are, and by stories, I mean my life. That's what I mean. I mean your life. I mean our lives. I mean our lives together, mine and your life, our relationship, our planet, our purpose, our meaning, all those wonderful stories that are utterly and completely empty. The only meaning they have is the meaning that you, as an individual human being, gives each story. And you may have noticed already, you'll tell a story that you think is wonderful and meaningful and full of gravitas. And you're quite amazed when the person you're telling glazes over with boredom, because to them, it's a meaningless, useless, pointless, empty story. That's how significant your meaningful stories are. And it's wonderful. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to pretend that there are stories that matter. All there are stories that matter to you and me and maybe us. But of course, they don't matter. Of course, they do matter relatively on a human individual level. They really matter, but absolutely not. And it's terribly paradoxical that if every human being's story, every group of human beings' story, every country's story, every, I don't know, whatever, racial, gender, all these stories of great importance. I just seen for what they are, which is self's need to be special. I need to be significant. Well, you are wonderfully not even insignificant. Insignificant is far too significant for you. You don't matter at all, apart from to yourself and to other selves who love you. And then the love is more profound, not less. It's not diminished in any way whatsoever. Your non-existence as an individual self does not diminish love one iota. Paradoxically, the love is much more obvious for it not being real. And if you tell people that, they won't like it. Don't expect, I wouldn't tell anyone really. I like to tell you because you're quite amused by it, but don't go around telling people generally. Because people take love very personally. It's just the nature of self to take love very personally, indeed. Just like everything else, I claim love for myself. It's my love. And I long for your love. And don't ask me how, but it can be outrageously obvious that there is only this, and that this, in its obviousness, is all love. All of it. And so, of course, if there's only love, there is no love. And the unconditional love is a silly word, but we don't have words. We don't have appropriate words for unconditional things. Things by their nature are conditional. So the whole notion of unconditional love is nonsensical. I guess that's what I love most about this message, is that it isn't about making sense at all. It flies in the face of all logic, all rationality. It defies being made sense of. And fuck, it does upset people. who will say it's bullshit. And of course it is bullshit. Of course it is. This is bullshit. The most beautiful bullshit. Well, that'll upset anyone who wants to argue with you about non-duality. When you say, of course it's bullshit. There's nothing worse than somebody who wants a debate with you about the nature of existence, or the nature of life, or the absolute truth. And of course, there's nothing more annoying than saying, I don't know. But you said, yeah, I know I said it, but I don't know that. Well, what about when you said that? Yeah, I don't know that either. Well, lovely to see you all. If you want to share anything or ask anything, then just put your hand up or write in the chat.
Freddie has his hand up.
Hi, Freddie. Hello, mate.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Fred.
So I made the mistake of speaking about, I don't even know what I said, but it didn't go down well. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
I mean,
where were you speaking, Freddie?
Eh?
Well, who did you speak to?
My wife.
Oh yeah, big mistake.
And what was interesting was that the response was that I'm self-centered.
Of course you are.
So I just had to take that on the chin. And
yeah. Just I think of it as like Muhammad Ali rope-a-doping against Joe Frazier or George Foreman. You know, you just have to cover up and just
yes. Very good.
hang on the ropes.
Yeah. And the other amazing experience that I wanted to share with you was in February. Well, is it still February? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Well, the beginning of this month, the motivational speaker Tony Robbins had a kind of 3-day free seminar.
Right.
And 1 million people tuned in. 1 million. And I was one of them because I was just, I thought, why not? Let's have a look at what's going on. You know, it's the new year. And so.
And you could do with some motivation, no doubt.
Exactly. I thought, let's see if he can light a fire under my ass. So he did these, and actually I must say I was deeply moved by so many people earnestly looking to improve or just change in some way, and the stories were incredible of a father who their 5-year-old daughter had drawn a picture of him as this kind of angry monster.
Right.
And he realized that that's how he was living his life, and he wanted to. And so, really human, and well, of course we're all human and we're all doing the best we can. And it was, I'd shed many tears. But it was when on about day 2, Tony Robbins, talked about how there are different selves within us. And one of them is the warrior self. So he had everybody, 1 million people all at once, touch on their body where they felt the warrior self. And then what color was that self? So you imagined a color, and then what sound would be produced from the warrior self. And so 1 million people in their living rooms screamed and gave voice to this entity, the warrior self.
Right.
And it then progressed onto other selves, and there were 4 of them. There was the warrior self, there was the lover self, where everybody held their heart, and then there was another self, but it was all overseen by the sovereign self, and it was at the point where he had people say, so what is the warrior? What would the sovereign self say to the warrior self? So, then you start having a conversation with well, the sovereign self would say, it's okay, calm down, don't have to go crazy, it's all going to be okay in the end. And I'm trying to think of if there was another self as well, but and it was just it was still very moving, but it was from where I am, that's when I couldn't really take it anymore, and I go for a walk or something, because it was a little bit confusing and a bit well, schizophrenic. I mean, that's the definition of schizophrenia as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So it was but I just wanted to share it, and we're all doing the best we can. And so when I take that back to, conversations with my wife, it's you can't help but feel absolute compassion for everybody, really, because everybody's just doing the best they can, and
Yeah.
taking it all so seriously. So
Yeah. Well, and you can only have great compassion for how hard everyone's trying to improve themselves. That's what I'm not joking. I thought I wouldn't stop crying for myself, and in the tears for myself, of course, it's for all selves. It's for everyone.
right.
Everyone's sense of not good enough, of not so that I could get there. With no idea at all where there would be or what it would look like. Maybe I've got some vague imaginings of what being there, of being good enough might look like. But yeah, just that constant sense of incompletion.
Yes, I've just thought of the other self. It was the magical self.
Oh, of course. Well, everyone needs one of those. The wizarding self. Everyone wants. Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah, and then the magical self is what comes up with all the magical thinking. If I think in a certain way, and then I'll make it happen. All the affirmations. The magical self is a big seller. The one that can make the magic happen. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Freddie. No, and
yeah.
no, there is great compassion. Because I still get criticized for saying there is no self, and then just most of my talking is about self. Of course, it has to be, because how can it not be? It's just how we relate to each other as human beings is all about self. So of course, I mean, on an absolute level, there's fuck all to say. Could just so you end up talking about self, and as you rightly point out, that all you can have is great compassion. That's what there is, great compassion for the misery that self inflicts upon itself. That's the motivation to speak about this, is compassion.
Well, Tim, I am so happy that you choose to have these meetings, and long may it continue, because it's a great source of sustenance for me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Freddie. That's great to have.
Got you frozen.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. All right.
Get your magical self to sort it out. There you go. But as if by magic, he pressed a button with his magic wand. Yeah, it's not by chance that Harry Potter is the most valuable franchise on earth. Self loves the idea of magical. The power of magic. I love magic. Loved magicians as a kid. If I went to a birthday party and they had a magician, I was over the moon.
Catherine. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hello, Catherine.
Hello. Just for fun and the magic, I volunteered once at a circus, and it was to lie down as an elephant walked over me.
Did you do that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, well done.
I'm not sure what my young daughters thought of it at the time.
Oh, I thought when you were a child, I thought when you were, oh no.
No.
As a mature, sensible adult, you thought that was a good idea.
Oh, well, I don't think I've ever been sensible.
Was it exciting?
Yes, of course. Why not?
Yeah, why
You
not?
know, why not? It's like, yeah, I'm there. That's it. Yeah, it looks like there was absolute saturation. I've had enough of all this BS. I can't listen to another word. And of course, you're off from one Zoom to another. You know, I'm a Zoom hopper.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's just disappeared. It's just.
Well, I'm glad you can still grace us with your presence. You know, I mean, what great honor have we got? Then you've no longer go around all those, but you turn up here still.
I still turn up at all of them. I love it.
Oh, sorry. And then there's me. Oh, sorry. I just.
Oh, no, sorry.
Special. No, you still turn up at all of them.
Come off your pedestal quickly now.
Oh yeah, shove me off that.
Anyway, I'll shut
Well,
up.
it's just nice to meet up, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's it.
That is it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say whatever you like about the reasons why. It doesn't make any difference. It's just nice to meet up.
Yeah, and it doesn't need, well, who knows what the reason is, though?
I would say that we're just social. We're
social. Oh, right. Oh, there you are. You've got an answer.
There's my theory.
Yes.
We're pack animals, and who feel ostracized from our pack that we were born into, and so we've gravitated to this weird bunch of losers.
Yes. Plus
that I adore.
We cannot fail. We cannot fail here because we don't have to pass an exam. We can't take on knowledge, you know, and we are allowed to hit our head against a brick wall over and over again. And
yeah.
Nobody's going to come and stop us.
Well, the thing I really genuinely think, why do people come here? Because you're in good company. And by good company, I just mean we've all come to a place where failure is beautiful.
I don't know, you know, it's so much more profound.
No,
we're cold home. We're called home. This is home, sweet home.
You can make it as proud, you know, you can have a calling to this and it's irresistible. Yeah, I could wax lyrical about shit like that if I wanted to. But I really think it's very basic that, you know, for all our efforts, you've only arrived here if there's some realization, some undoubtedness that it was all for nothing. that's how you end up here. That it's not for something, it's not for a reason.
Oh yes, yes.
Life is not reasonable. It's not interested in any of your reasons. It can't hear, it's never heard a word. You can, all your protestations, all you could scream into the night, it's not fair, it's not fair. Why is this happening? And you will just get this deafening silence as an answer. When I put that as the title of my book, that's what that means. It means when you ask the most profound questions, you ask God, you ask the universe, the most profound questions, the answer is a deafening silence. And that's the answer. The answer is that there is no answer. And that is the answer. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Gabriella, go ahead, Gabriella.
Gabby. Got to unmute yourself, Gabby. You have to press that there at the bottom.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, you know what you were just saying? It's like, I know I came today and it was, it's been a really shit week inside my head. I mean, it's quite often a shit week, but it's been a really shit week.
Right.
And I know when I come here that everything just quietens down.
Yeah.
So I know you say lots of words and that I don't really try, there isn't anything that tries to understand it, because I understand it feels, there's a resonance and it's energetic and all of those things. So I just needed, I was just working away and I was going, oh, I'm late. And it was go, oh, I'm not going to bother. And then it was like, why would I not do this? Why would I just not come and be in the room? So I've just come and been in the room because it's too painful not to be sometimes.
Oh, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Well,
That's it.
oh, it's lovely. Thanks.
Mary, go ahead, Mary.
So I'm wondering from there, is there any like cognition of will whatsoever?
I was thinking, are you wondering or are you wandering?
Both.
Because I saw you wandering and thought, oh, you're wandering.
I'm walking and wondering, and it's just like, you know, things come to volition, and I know it's, you know, if it's no thing, but like I get snagged up on the, if, you know, let's, you know, the story of manifesting something, and that's seeking. But when you look at everyone who had the self drop away, they were apparent people seeking whatever, whether it's spiritual or, you know, whether it was, you know, we talked about Paul Summers Morgan, just soccer or whatever it is and then there's a part of me that says, well, could there be something in the brain that just suddenly kind of switched off, and then now the perceptions are just different? And so I don't know, there's a lot bundled up there, but I'm trying to think about, like, some days I get up and I say, okay, I'm not gonna, if I have a decision to make, like, well, I'm not gonna do anything because I'm not really sure what to do. And then I'll say, well, it won't matter because I'll find myself eventually doing whatever it is or not doing whatever it is. And I'll be like, oh, okay, I guess this is what was supposed to happen. And I don't know, but there's some will there behind it, it feels like. Is there any feeling of that there with you, Tim? Like desire,
Mhm.
a desire to get up and do the Zoom meeting. You know, you planned it. Was that, would you say that's a desire, or how does that, the will and desire, like, how do they play into this?
I mean,
You don't know. Okay, good.
no, I really have no idea, absolutely none. But what I will say is, yes, of course there's desire. And of course there is the sense of will, which is, I mean, when we say will, is I'd like it to be like that. Is that kind of what we mean by will? The problem with language, you know, just the words, as though we know the difference between desire and will.
Right.
I mean, who knows that? I mean, because I would say you ask 10 different people and they'll have 10 different ideas of how they would discriminate between those two. And none of them are correct.
Yeah, because they're just concepts,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
More story.
But is there a natural motivation to for every human being to move towards what it desires? Yes, of course. That's purely natural. And what I would say is the whole notion of will is usurped by self to say that it is, I am the one who has the will to decide. Whereas naturally, decisions just happen or not. So whether you get up in the morning or you lie in bed in the morning, there will be thoughts that say, I'm choosing to get up or I'm choosing to stay in bed, and I am in control of that. Well, what I'm suggesting is that's bullshit. That's what self says. Because the thought of everything just happening, you could say by itself, happenings just happen or not, is just unthinkable to me because I have no control. And the whole nature of self is to acquire as much control, as much personal power as possible.
And when the events seemingly happened, after they happened, it's so clear that it didn't really happen. So like the other day, I said, it was, I don't know, 5 o'clock. I have one cat that always wants to wake me up, and the other is very patient. But the one that wakes me up, he knows what to do. He knows what to scratch, that I'm going to jump up and say, okay, fine. And then I was like, God, every morning at 5:30, and I said, and then all of a sudden it just became apparent that there wasn't any yesterday. There wasn't a 5:30 yesterday. It's all just, I don't know how to describe it, but there wasn't really a gap. Like it just became really apparent.
Oh, that's great.
There wasn't a yesterday at 5:30, nor is there one today. And I can't like put it into words. It just became kind of clear.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like even space in the room. There isn't really space.
No.
There's, you know, seemingly something that separates the two chairs, but
No,
sometimes there's this moment where everything is just like all.
Yeah, the only thing that separates the two chairs are the two chairs.
And is that my thought?
Well, what I'm saying is that perception is perception is whole, and then there are two chairs makes a space between the two chairs. So otherwise, there can't be two chairs.
Yeah.
So without there being two chairs, so that creates the space.
But
well, there is, you could say there's no space or there's only space, which is and they're not different really. So if everything is empty, so the space is the emptiness between two objects. But if the objects are empty too,
right.
If it's all empty, if it's all space, if there's only spaciousness, there is no space in between. There's no in between there's no in between. Full stop.
Yeah, and it goes the same as every apparent like story of what's happening. Like if you look at somebody and let's say did the most heinous crime, you know, murder, rape, pedophile, whatever, and then it's like, well, that's also a story. And I know you have to be, it's like the minute you say that, there's this almost like this volition to, you know, justify it. But the truth is, it's just become the compassion for the family is equal to the compassion for the person who is also sitting there, you know, the perpetrator. It doesn't seem like there's a separation of that either.
No. Well, they can be, but yeah, not necessarily at all.
But then because you're the character, you're, I guess there's an individual, because obviously that character has developed and embedded things over time that are embedded in the mind, in the brain, and they're habitual in their patterns. So that can present differently from each apparent person, no matter when the self seems to no longer be there, right?
Yeah, the uniqueness of each human being is more pronounced, not less.
More pronounced. Yeah, see, that's the interesting thing, because like I always define myself as an empath, because I felt like it was just something I was born with. I can walk into a room, I can read the room, I know it's gotten to the point where it's painful, like to go to places where, you know, things are going on, because I can read what's happening between each person without, you know, a lot of just eye movements and whatever, or just the way a dish is put in the sink. I know not to enter a kitchen or whatever. You get these, you know, but that that empathy is still, it's still there, but it's kind of merging into just what's happening. It's not, there's just a bunch of light flowing through people. I don't know.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for sharing all of that. It's lovely.
Thank you for listening.
This message, speaking what typically is called radical non-duality, is it has there can be the criticism that it's dismissing individuality, but it's not at all. Quite the contrary. Human beings' individual characteristics and uniqueness, the wonderful uniqueness of each human being, that every human being, apparently there's 8 billion. I sort of don't believe it. Imagine, can't be that many, can there? I'm told. The uniqueness is much more profoundly obvious without the leap of imagination that says they are their selves. So it's their unique self. Without that, the uniqueness is more pronounced, more clear, more wonderful. The whole notion that it's their individuality, it's your individuality, kind of is like a mask. It's a persona. It's the illusion of ownership. And just when you know, it's just, you see human beings as like dogs. You know, the beautiful uniqueness of every hound you've ever known, if you're a dog lover. And so human beings are more lovable because self's always afraid of the other selves. And without that, I'm not talking that you'll suddenly become fearless. I just mean you're not afraid of the other self seeing yourself and you presenting yourself to the other selves. There's so much conflict. There's violence in that. That's how there's so much fear. And of course, where there's fear, there's always the danger of violence. I mean, psychological and physical. Because when you're afraid, you're going to react aggressively quite often. Yeah, individuality is it's just not yours, along with everything else that you've taken to be yours. Isn't it wonderful that nothing's yours? Dreadfully wonderful. But it is. No one to blame. I mean, you won't like that. Self hates that. Self needs self in order to blame. So if there's shit going down, really, I've only got 2 choices. It's either my fault or yours. And each self has a preference for one or the other. Most do a bit of both. But most selves have a preference. You know, the self-effacing ones, the really, you know, the self-pitying ones, they always blame themselves. And but you have to have someone to blame. That's why we have acts of God. For those where we can't apportion blame, we have to blame someone so God gets it. Some fucker's got to be responsible. This whole notion of there has to be a reason. Without a reason, I just can't cope. I just can't. You know, there has to be. And, you know, this demand that self has that things must happen for a reason. Well, not only do they not happen for a reason, they don't really happen. Well, not any that you could find anyway. Michael had his hand up. Has he gone?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, he's got fed up. He's fed up with waiting.
Go ahead, Kim.
Hi.
Hi,
I'm glad
Kim.
I,
Hi,
hi,
Kim.
I'm glad I got to come. Usually you're at 2 my time and I'm in Spanish Zoom. So,
I
so it's
just
nice.
I saw your message. So you're
Yeah,
out of your
yeah, I made
time.
it. Yeah, it's funny when on this spiritual thing, eventually when I found Tony and Jim Newman and all, well, Tony, like I listen and then I get really depressed and I'd have to go away and go back to the traditional Nisargadatta or Ramana. And then, you know, I'd come back and I'd get depressed again. And I'd feel the emptiness. I feel this terrible emptiness. But the last 3 years, you know, my mom was sick and died. My dad has Alzheimer's as an institution. I can see the same thing starting to happen with my husband. My son has a terrible chronic illness. And I was like listening to you, and I went to Jim's thing in Asheville. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm over the depression, but it feels like I'm just falling from a big, tall building. You know, everything. I call this end stage non-duality, you know, because it's like everything falls away.
Yeah.
And then when I heard you talking about the beauty of the pain and the suffering, I'm like, that's it. That's it. It's all the time here. Even, you know, we try this enlightenment thing because we think we'll never suffer once we get there. You know, at the end of the journey, we'll be in bliss all the time, never any suffering, because we're so depersonalized from it. And you're like, no, let's go into it. And it's kind of like the answer between the depersonalization and being totally in it. I can't explain it. You just really, something like that's it. That's it. All this stuff's going on in my family.
Yeah.
This is beautiful too, because
Of course it is.
this is it.
Well,
It's beautifully sad.
the sadness is so obviously love.
Yes, it is.
I just think it's just overlooked. It's just constantly overlooked because, of course, sadness is painful.
Yes.
This is not a denial of how painful sadness is. Grief and loss is incredibly painful. But what most spirituality seems to me is a denial of that, or just trying to get some distance between me and that, so it's not as painful.
Yeah, Schopenhauer was I think he was secretly a non-dualist because he says we're in a jail, you know, and reminded me of the Birdman of Alcatraz, who had a terrible childhood and killed someone on the spur of a moment and then got life in prison in Alcatraz. And he was beating up the guards and, you know, he was a bad prisoner. But one day a wounded bird landed on his, on his jail window, and he took care of it. And that led to learning all about birds, becoming an expert on birds. And the guards would bring their family birds in, and it completely changed him.
Was that, I just kind of remember the black and white movie. It was Burt Lancaster, wasn't it?
Burt Lancaster. Is based on a true story.
Yeah.
The guard that he, hated him at first, wrote the book eventually because they became friends.
I remember watching it as a kid and absolutely adoring it.
Burt Lancaster was fabulous in it.
Yes,
but so when you realize this is the jail, it's fine. The jail is fine. Just I don't know how that really ties into loving the pain. His focus on.
Well, the thing about it being me, the thing about self is for a lot of selves, and it was how I experienced depression as me, was being in prison. It was like being in prison and there was no light. So, and I wanted to escape. So very much for many selves, not all selves, but a lot of selves, the sense of being me is a sense of being in prison. Without a doubt, it's very common. and it's always there, but quite often if self is out in the world, which most selves are out in the world, so they feel they're not in prison, but then it can all close in, and then there's a sense of imprisonment, which is really common in depression. And for most, there's a desire to escape. The wonder is that there isn't it's not that this is an escape at all. There is no escape, but there is no prison, there is no cell. So the analogy that comes to mind is that self is the cell and the prisoner and the jailer. All aspects of the imprisonment are self. So the one who is imprisoned by itself as itself. So there really isn't. So there isn't an escape, because there was never, the cell was always empty. There was never anyone inside. The inside is empty. So it's not that there's an escape. The escape isn't possible, because the cell that you've imprisoned yourself in is already empty. And without, of course, a cell that's empty, there's no cell. The walls disappear. There aren't any walls. There is nothing between what you called yourself and everything else. That's all really we're speaking about. There is an illusory separation, an illusory wall and bars between you and everything. It's not true. There is no you and everything. There is neither. So I was always trying to escape. That's what I was doing. Whether it was non-duality or anything else, going out partying, getting drunk, that's just trying to escape. That was my most common method. Getting shit-faced. Of course, as you will have all experienced, waking up the next morning as me, fuck, the walls have got thicker. God, they've put extra guards on the doors. The bars are thicker. There's no light coming in at all. So there was a heavy price to pay for those momentary escape plans. So you had to rebuild another escape plan. That's what you could say that was all my life was. One escape plan after another. Oh, another failed escape plan. Another failed attempt. Move on, find a new, talk to some other people who've got some better ideas of how you could escape. That's what I did. I went from one to the next, to the next. And not just, I don't mean spiritual, because most of mine was psychological, really. And some practical ones, of course. Get a new job. That'll do it. Won't. Get a new lover. No, that won't do it either. Get a new self. Oh, that'll work. Not. An improved self. All this self-improvement. So,
Mary has her hand up.
Sorry, Mary, yeah.
So was there like an adjustment then? Because once there's no filter, when things happen and they're intense, like the sad and happy, they're all kind of coming at you. There's not a you to say, okay, this is what's happening, and explain it and sort of break it down. It's all just happening. And then did you find that there was like a kind of a stark adjustment, or is that also, and that just depends on the character too, I suppose?
Yeah, I would only speak for how it was here, for me, for how it was here. There would be no rules about that. I think for some, it seems like there is quite a long period of adjustment or getting used to, maybe, but not necessarily, I don't think at all.
Okay.
And of course, that's just another story, whether there is or not. I mean, if I say there was a long period of adjustment, of course there wasn't.
Right. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Tim.
But seeming getting used to, yeah. But here the biggest thing was not the emotion. I mean, so what was different was getting used to the emptiness, was that everything was so empty. That was what was so profoundly different. Rather than just so the fullness was exactly the same. So everything is as it was. There's no change in perception. Nothing appears any different. Apparent life is apparent life. Perception is apparent perception. Seeing is seeing. Hearing is hearing. Really no difference in that. But there is this profound, incredibly immense difference that all of it is empty.
Is that like a lightness?
Now it may feel light, but I wouldn't be surprised if for a lot of human beings it's hugely disturbing, disconcerting, the emptiness, overwhelming, depressing, disappointing. It could be, there's no rules about how that might feel, but what we're speaking of is this obviousness of emptiness. Which self is the denial of. Because I am real, then everything else is real. So everything is just real, not equally real and unreal, not equally full and empty, not equally a thing and nothing. And an emptiness, I say emptiness like I can see emptiness or I can feel emptiness. I don't even know how emptiness is so obvious. You won't know how emptiness is so obvious unless it's obvious. But if the emptiness of everything, which really, when I'm saying empty, I really mean that I don't know. So there is still the apparent knowing. So I know a chair from a table. But I also don't doubt that I don't know a chair from a table, and the chair and the table are equally empty. This arbitrary thingness that we call knowledge. It's just arbitrary. It just doesn't, it's lost all its weight. So knowledge becomes weightless and empty as well. So, and understanding, which all understanding is just making sense of the relationships between things. That's all understanding is. So all understanding is empty too. And yet it still is exactly the same as it would be when it was true, when it was the truth. But it's not replaced by something that really knows. You know, so it's not like, oh, I know that's not true because I know the truth. No, it's that the truth isn't knowable.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Yeah.
And I don't,
part of the emptiness, I guess.
Yeah, and that is really a big part of the emptiness, yes.
Because the whole energy of I know is so, it's like the minute you open your eyes in the morning, I know that's a tree, I know that's a bird, I know that, I know I did this, or I have to. And then when that's gone, and yeah, kind of, I guess, you know, free fall or whatever you want to, like, there's nowhere to really land. There's no one to protect you from it anymore.
No, there isn't. No, this is total vulnerability. But of course, there's no one actually who is vulnerable.
Right. Yeah, like every emotion is just there, but it's not yours.
No.
And you can't even say it could be energy, whatever way you want to describe it. It's just something, a vibration, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it is, and it's full on, because there is no, you can't save yourself from it. And really, that's what you've always been trying to do. That's what self is always trying to look after itself.
Yeah, this self wants a soft landing.
Yeah. Well, the wonder is, of course, it is free fall, but why?
Andreas Mueller says he had a soft landing when it, you know, he says, oh, when I died, it was a pretty soft, you know, easy.
Well, the wonder is, I mean, there is only the falling. So this is always falling away. There is only the falling, but there's no landing. So why is falling scary? Because you're going to hit the fucking ground. Well, there is no ground. You won't land. There's no landing.
So in that sense, the fear is not there.
So there is no fear of falling. There's just falling. And if you think about falling, I remember I said this ages ago, but I've just remembered it, that if there's falling without the ground, then you might as well call it flying.
True. Love that.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh, thank you. And thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Darren. Lovely to see you. Thanks, Gabby. Thanks for everybody who shared today as well. Lovely. Hopefully see you next Thursday at 7 usual time. Lovely to see you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.